Witnesses testifying at trial in a criminal case. But who gets to testify and who doesn't? Well, that takes us to this week's case. It involves real people. Arose in Kentucky. It was a murder case. In this instance, there was a same-sex couple. There was Bobbie Jo Clary and her partner, Geneva Case. Now, Bobbie Jo was accused of murder. In the investigation, district attorney found out that Genevieve was someone who had seen her partner wiping blood from an automobile, and additionally that she, Genevieve, heard her partner confess to her to the murder. Well, needless to say, district attorney wanted to have that evidence come before the jury at trial. But Miss Case, Genevieve Case, jumped up and said, you can't subpoena me because I am claiming marital privilege. I'm claiming marital privilege because we are a couple and we essentially are married. Well, marital privilege actually does exist, and you've probably seen it referred to in some old crime movies in which somebody will say, hey, you can't testify against me because you're my wife. Well, that is true. There is a marital privilege. It's recognized in the majority of states in the country, and it's designed to keep marriages from falling apart because one party testifies against the other one. So anyway, in this instance, Genevieve Case claims the marital privilege. She says, we went up to Vermont, we engaged in a civil union. This is before Vermont actually enacted same-sex marriage. Went up, engaged in a civil union, we came back down here to Kentucky, and for all intents and purposes, we are married. Well, DA argued, no, you're not married. No, you're not married. You're not married because here in Kentucky, we do not recognize same-sex marriages. And plus the fact you didn't even get a marriage in Vermont, you got a civil union. So the DA argued to the judge that she, Genevieve, should be compelled to appear at trial and truthfully answer questions. All right, so the judge is sitting there with a decision to make. And what does the judge decide to do? Judge looks at the evidence and says, you know, the facts are the facts. And you two went up to Vermont, you got a civil union. That wasn't a marriage. And that civil union is not recognized here in Kentucky, and because it's not recognized here in Kentucky, Mr. DA, you're absolutely correct, and yes, Ms. Case, you must testify and testify truthfully. Okay. So what do we learn about this case? What do we learn from this case? What we learn is this, that in today's world, we're seeing the evolution of same-sex marriage. But it isn't always a smooth road. And why? Because some states recognize same-sex marriages and other states don't. And in those states where it's not recognized, you cannot run back home to the state that does not recognize it and contend that the U.S. Constitution applies, that you get full faith and credit, because this is up to individual states to recognize. And if an individual state fails to recognize same-sex unions, well then, all of the things that actually apply to marriages do not apply to the same-sex unions. What kind of things are we talking about? We're talking about, this instance, testifying, but we're also talking about such things as inheriting property. How do things go under a will? What happens to child custody? All of these things may not work out quite the way a same-sex couple wants them to work out if they're living in a state that fails to recognize same-sex marriages. All right, we bring you this case as we bring you cases every week so you understand how the law works. I'm David Allen.